Have you ever been deep into learning something really complex, like advanced math or physics, and you just slam into a wall? You're doing all the steps, you're working through the problems, but you just don't get the big picture. It feels like you're totally lost in the woods with no map. Well, what if the problem isn't you, but the way you're being taught to see it?
Right, let's really dig into this question because I think it's a feeling a lot of us can relate to. And it turns out there's a fascinating reason why this happens. Understanding it can totally change how you approach learning, not just math, but really any complex field. The whole answer comes down to the difference between just following a path, step by step, and actually having a map of the entire territory.
So, let's start with the core of the problem here. It's not that math is just impossible to learn. It's that we're often taught to see all the individual little steps without ever really seeing the massive interconnected system they're all a part of. It's a fundamental, and I mean fundamental, difference in perspective. Now, this really gets to the heart of it. On one side, you've got the procedural view. This is how we usually learn things, right? Memorize this formula, follow these steps. In complex systems, they call this following the orbit. It's like you're glued to a single planet, watching its path without ever understanding the sun or the other planets that are actually controlling everything. But on the other side, you have the structural view. This is like zooming out and seeing the entire solar system at once. All the patterns, all the connections, the whole beautiful geometry of it. You go from being a passenger to being the one who draws the maps.
So, how do we get that map? How do we make that leap? Well, the solution is to get what researchers call a paradigm. And you can think of a paradigm as the ultimate mental map for any subject. It's not just one little idea, it's a whole new way of seeing and thinking that just organizes everything else you learn. Okay, so let's break that down a little. A mathematical paradigm is a coherent system. It's the whole shebang. It includes the visuals and the symbols you use to think, the core ideas that never change no matter what. Mathematicians call these invariants. And even the unwritten rules about what makes for a good question or a really satisfying answer. So the key takeaway is this. It's not just another piece of knowledge, it's the entire operating system for that knowledge. And just to be super clear, a paradigm is way, way bigger than some of the other words we throw around. It's not just a teaching approach. It's not a simplified model of one specific thing. And it's not just a framework you use for analysis. A paradigm is the very lens through which you see the entire subject. It shapes absolutely everything. Okay, so if getting a new paradigm is the secret sauce, how does our brain actually pull that off? Well, researchers have kind of broken it down into what they call the paradigm exposure model. It's this 5-stage process that shows how our minds can literally build a new way of seeing things, and in the process, radically speed up our understanding. So it all starts with exposure. You have to see the whole system, all at once, not just scattered little pieces. Then comes activation. This is where your brain kicks into gear, trying to connect this new map to the old trails it already knows. And then this is where the magic happens, compression. You learn to boil down all that crazy complexity into just a few powerful core ideas, those invariants we were talking about. And that breakthrough leads to reorganization, where your mind literally rewires itself around this new, much more efficient structure. Finally, you get to stabilization. This is just practice, 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 using your new map until you're navigating with it and it feels like second nature. Now, I know this might still sound a little abstract, so let's make it real. Let's look at a few solid examples from mathematics itself. These shifts are brilliant because they show exactly how moving from one paradigm to another can unlock a completely new level of understanding. Remember that follow the orbit idea? That's the old paradigm. You're just watching one little dot move around. The new paradigm, it's seeing the whole structure all at once. Suddenly you can see these powerful forces at play, like attractors that act like gravitational wells, pulling everything in, and repellers that are pushing things away. You're no longer just watching one character in a movie. You understand the entire plot and what motivates everyone. It's a huge, huge leap. And here's another classic example. In school, we all learn Euclidean geometry. It's the system of really rigid rules about points and lines and angles. It's very static. But there's a much more dynamic paradigm out there, transformational geometry. And in this world, you stop just memorizing rules and you start thinking about actions. What happens when you rotate a shape, or flip it, or stretch it out? The really powerful insight comes when you ask, what properties stay the same through all that change? What are the deep invariants? You shift your focus from a simple list of facts to the fundamental symmetries of space itself. It is a much, much deeper way to see geometry. So why does all this matter? I mean, what's the real payoff for learning this way? Well, the benefits are pretty profound. They lead to a kind of fluency and deep understanding that just following steps could never give you. You're not just a student anymore. You're actually starting to think like an expert.
So, what do you get out of this? Well, the payoff is huge. First, you get conceptual acceleration. You just learn way faster because you have the big picture from the start. You get representational fluency, which means you can look at a problem from multiple angles and switch between them effortlessly. This leads to autonomy. You're no longer just following instructions. You're in the driver's seat, intelligently choosing the right tool for the job. And finally, because all your knowledge is anchored in these deep, stable patterns, you get incredible long-term retention. It just sticks. So I'll just leave you with this one thought. We often think the key to mastering a tough subject is just more hours, more grit, more effort. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the real secret is just finding the right paradigm, a better map, that lets you see the entire landscape clearly, right from the very beginning?